or just how can we use this information to help you guys out? So this is the results that we ended up being able to analyze. Like Claire mentioned, we did have results from the timed up and go, but that was locked in the lab. And we also weren't able to do some additional data collections that we planned on doing just because of resulting situations of the virus. So we're just going to be presenting on 4 participants that we collected on. So it's a little limited, but it was pretty interesting to see what we found, and we're pretty excited to keep moving forward with this project. So what you see on the screen now, this is participant 1's data. So like Claire mentioned, we do the pre-testing is right before dance, and then post 1 is immediately after dance ends, post 2 is 30 minutes after, and post 3 is an hour after. And just as a refresher, the higher scores in UPDRS indicate more severe symptoms, and lower scores indicate less severity of the display of symptoms. So you can see the pre-score is about like a 27, and then post 1, it drops to about like a 19 or a 20. So from before dance to immediately after, the UPDRS score drops a pretty good amount, which indicates that there was improvement in motor symptoms following the dance outreach group. And then you can see in the post 2 and post 3 scores that it's still better than it was at pre. So we can see that the improvement of symptoms is lasting 30 minutes after dance ends and an hour after dance ends for participant 1. So going into participant 2's data, you can see here that pre compared to post 1 is again a significant drop in UPDRS scores. And just something to note for this is that we did have some data collection error on this. So there were 10 scores that were not able to be collected, but that was removed from every single data collection. So that's what the little yellow box on the right is indicating. Just so you know, 16 isn't going to be the total motor UPDRS score. We had to adjust that for the missing collections. So this is just displaying the motor symptoms that we were able to collect and report on. So pre, it starts around 16, and again, immediately after dance, it drops. And even at post 3, which is an hour after dance, the score still doesn't reach as high as it was pre. So we can see that even an hour after dance, motor symptoms are still improved compared to what they were before the dance outreach group for participant 2 as well. So participant 3 here, same thing. They started at around 24, 25 and dropped to about a 14. And then by post 3, they only raised to about a 20. So still an hour after dance, the symptoms still weren't as severe as they were before dance for participant 3 as well. And then participant 4 here, again, we had to adjust these scores for this participant. There was only 2 that we forgot to collect on, or that there were mishaps on. So only 2 scores were deleted, but it was from every single one. So it was all normalized. But without those scores, from what we were able to collect, post 1 was still improved for the symptoms we were able to collect on, and that improvement stayed through post 3. So again, this one's a little closer, but looking at the numbers, post 3 still does not reach as high of a score as it was pre. And you can still tell that clearly there was an improvement in motor symptoms immediately after dance, which is post 1 here. So all 4 participants that we were able to collect data on, they all improved their motor symptoms immediately after dance, which was pretty interesting to see. So this is a more direct comparison. So we took the averages of everybody's pre-score, and then we took the average of everybody's post 1 score. And that's what you're seeing here in this table. So you can see clearly that the pre-scores were much higher than the post 1. And again, as a reminder, post 1 is immediately after the dance ends, and pre is right before dance. So you can see the scores drop significantly, which indicates that there is an improvement in the symptoms. And our p-value over here is 0.016, and that is the indication that there are significant results to this, which is pretty cool since there was only 4 participants that we're able to report on. But just those 4 alone, we already see significant results that the dance outreach group has a significant effect on motor symptoms immediately following the completion of the outreach group. So then here, I know it probably looks the same, but if you look at the bottom of the gold column, it's post 2. So this is comparing pre to post 2, which as a reminder, post 2 is 30 minutes after dance. So we're comparing what were the motor symptoms before dance and what were they 30 minutes after the completion of dance outreach. And you can still see here that there was an improvement. The UPDRS score did drop, And then over here, our p-value is 0.027, which to reach significance, it needed to be 0.02 or below. So it's not quite statistically significant, but it's pretty close. And especially for only having 4 participants, that is an awesome number to see. So we think if we are able to collect on more participants coming up here soon, if everything calms down, that we might be able to get that number to significant. So it's pretty interesting to see that even 30 minutes after dance, there's still an improvement in motor symptoms. And then this is looking at post 3, which as a reminder, again, that is an hour after the completion of dance. And the p-value is 0.1, which again, that doesn't reach significance, but looking at the trends of all the participants, it's still improved compared to pre. So it might not be statistically significant, but it definitely is a trend to keep your eye out for, because that's pretty interesting that all 4 of our participants for this study still had improved symptoms compared to before dance started. So overall, another question that we had, which we thought after presenting you all might have, was, okay, is there a symptom that is improved the most? Like, does tremor improve the most, or does balance improve the most? So we did go ahead and look into that, but after looking at it further, we noticed that the improvements kind of varied amongst the participants. So what symptoms one person improved on might not be the symptoms another person improved on, but everyone still improved in some way, which makes sense because everyone has different symptoms with Parkinson's disease. So everyone, whatever your symptoms may be, those were pretty much your symptoms that improved. So that's kind of cool because that tells us that the dance outreach group benefits more of a general motor control rather than specific symptoms. So if you come to dance outreach group, it's not saying, okay, it's going to target tremor, it's going to improve tremor. So if you don't have tremor, no point in coming, right? But that's not what this is saying. This is saying that dance is going to target more of a global process in the brain. So whatever your symptoms may be, dance will target those symptoms for you and have more of a global improvement. So no matter what your symptoms may be with Parkinson's disease, dance will improve and help those symptoms in some way.
And while our study was able to provide some powerful insight as to these acute effects that we see after the dance class on these symptoms, there was a limitation on the study that Mikayla and Claire had mentioned earlier, that we had only collected data on 4 participants within a single group. So now we are curious to see how our findings will change, if at all, with the inclusion of 1 more participants and also across multiple outreach groups. That's a future plan of ours. Moving forward, we have a great interest and to see how all the other outreach groups will fare in retrospect to our dance findings. So we're going to see, are there similar findings in boxing, or are there similar findings in singing or yoga? And ideally, this will give us more participants to collect data on and provide causal links to an intervention for Parkinson's symptoms. Now, with more data, we can begin to answer questions such as which outreach group provides the longest duration of motor improvements, and also the longing question of which is more beneficial for Parkinson's disease symptoms, music, or exercise. These are our sources. Are there any questions for us that you guys might have?
If you do, you can either unmute yourself or type in the chat as well.
And just stop sharing your screen so we can see everybody, just in case someone has a question. Okay, well, if there's no questions, we'll move to group 2. Oh, wait, there is a question. So it says, what was the original number of participants planned?
So originally we hoped to collect on everyone who is a participant of the dance outreach group, but we also were limited to only 1 collection per dance class. So that kind of limited it. So we were aiming for collecting at least 9 this semester, but we unfortunately were not able to get that. But we're hoping to continue that maybe this summer if we're allowed to, or possibly reach that higher number in the fall. So number planned is kind of vague, just as many as we can get, but
Right.
yeah,
As many as
hopefully
we
that
can-
answers your question.
Yeah, as many as we can make work with the amount of people that we have and resources.
All right, so if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead with group 2.
Yep, that's me. I'll go. Okay, can everyone see that? Let's see if you guys can see. All right. Okay, so we'll get started. So my name is Gwynne Wright. I know I've seen a lot of you before. You've seen me come in and out of the outreach groups, but I am in the honors program. So my honors project actually was through Dr. S's lab, and my project was the effect of intergenerational relationships and quality of life through 8 weeks of involvement in outreach groups. So here's just a quick glance at my poster here. I'm just going to go through each one of these sections and kind of break it down for you guys. So to introduce my study, a combination of motor and non-motor symptoms, including depression, lead to social isolation in those with Parkinson's disease, which leads to a lower health-related quality of life. So previous studies have shown that intergenerational relationships have helped improve the quality of life of older adults. Also, in the college student population, there's a mean prevalence of depression in college students, and that's 10% higher than the general population, with 80% of those students reporting high stress. So studies have also shown that quality of life is significantly impacted by social relationships and the amount of support that college students receive. So when I was doing my literature review, kind of getting an idea of what I wanted my topic to be, there was a lot of gaps in the literature when it came to people with Parkinson's and also with college students based on these intergenerational relationship groups. So the purpose of my study was to evaluate the effects of an 8 weeks of participation in an intergenerational outreach group for both populations of older adults with Parkinson's disease and college-age students who were volunteering. And quality of life and well-being were the main focus of my study. So I predicted that after 8 weeks of involvement in the outreach groups, self-reported well-being and quality of life will improve with both populations. So here's just a quick glance at my participants. I know some of you are actually involved in this study, so thank you for that. You can see there's my inclusion criteria for the healthy young adults, who are also known as the volunteers, and the older adults with Parkinson's disease, known as the participants. They're coded throughout this presentation with HYA and PD. So basically you can see there's just different age requirements, obviously, and with the Parkinson's disease population, they did have to have a diagnosis of PD. So here's just a quick glance also at my demographic information. You can see originally we had 13 healthy young adults and 13 Parkinson's disease participants. However, I'd like to note here that due to the coronavirus and all the change of events that we've experienced, I was only able to gather 8 of the participants from both the healthy young adults and 8 of the participants from the PD population for my study, and we were only able to compare week 1 and week 4. So like I said before, originally we were going to examine the changes in week 1, 4, and 8, but for the purpose of my study and we're trying to get data out of it as well, we just looked at week 1 and week 4. So what we did here was at week 1 and week 4 of involvement, a self-developed quality of life survey was distributed to both populations immediately following the outreach group. The survey consisted of 8 quality of life and well-being themed questions that were marked on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the best. And also a free response question was asked and verbally answered and recorded. So the survey would, like I said before, 8 quantitative questions and 1 qualitative question. Took about 5 to 10 minutes to complete. Here's just a quick glance at my survey. There's the 8 questions and then the 1 question that was asked, answered, and recorded verbally. So what I did for my data analysis, the survey scores were totaled out of 80 and averaged individually and as a whole population, and we look for improvement with significance in t-tests. For the verbal survey answers, we transcribed all of those, and then we performed a thematic analysis and went through and coded the data, which we'll explain later. We also ran a Pearson correlation so we could check to see if the duration of the participation affected the quality of life scores as well. So here's just some of my results. As you can see in these two graphs, on the left, you can see the healthy young adult survey results, and then on the right, you can see the Parkinson's disease, population. So you can see throughout these results, they're just the participants that we were able to gather data from on week 1 and week 4. And for the healthy young adults, you can see that every single student either stayed the same with the same reported quality of life or improved, which was a really neat trend. With the PD participants, we saw improvements as well. There's a little more variability, but overall, most of them did improve or stay the same. So then I went on and averaged the survey 1 and survey 2 for both populations. As you can see here, the healthy young adults, you can see a pretty tremendous increase, as well as an increase with the PD population. So when we look for significance, we're looking for the p-values, and we generally want that to be under 0.05. So for the students, we can actually see that the p-value was found to be 0.057. So just missing that significant range, but definitely the trends are there. If we would have had week 8, it would have been really interesting to see. Then we went on to break down the questions, because I kind of wanted to see if one question stood out more than the rest, because like I said before, we did base these on different themes. So here's just kind of the results from the breakdown of the questions. You can see that no questions for the healthy young adults were significant in changes from week 1 to week 4, but question 3 did actually have a pretty close significance. You can see a pretty big jump here with question 3. So I went back and looked to see what question 3 was, and it was, how are you feeling mentally? So even though it is not considered significant statistically, just a change, a positive change in the middle of the semester for students to report that they mentally felt better is pretty big. So another trend that we saw that was pretty neat. So we went on to break down the questions for the older adults with PD. We did actually find a significant question with this population, and that was question 8. So I again examined what question 8 was, and question 8 was, how would you rate your overall quality of life? So I thought this was really important, because you could see here that each one of the participants either stayed the same, which reported a perfect quality of life, as well as all the rest of them did increase, which was really neat to see. So I thought that was another pretty important trend we noticed. Also, we ran a Pearson correlation, and this just examines the change in quality of life reported with the duration in the outreach groups, and we didn't really find much of a correlation throughout this. So basically what this is saying is that your quality of life can change no matter the duration you spend in the outreach groups. So then we went on to my favorite part. We performed a thematic analysis, and basically what we did was that we transcribed those verbal answers into a document and then went through and read them to kind of get some of a repetition of what people were trying to say. So we went through and highlighted fragments that kind of fit a certain code, and I'll show you how we did that next. So here's the survey 1 thematic analysis. You can see here's the code, the description, the response group, and the prevalence. So you can see a big one here for survey 1 was enjoyment or positive experience. So actually 87.5% of the healthy young adults said they enjoyed their time in the outreach group, as well as 75% of the PD population. Other codes that we picked were highlight of the week for the students, community feelings from the PD participants, and helpfulness. Then we went on to survey 2, and this just basically shows similar results. We were able to find just a bit more codes than survey 1 provided, but again, forming social relationships had a big prevalence rate with 75% of the students and 50% of the PD population reporting that they formed social relationships, as well as enjoyment and positive experience were again high. So for you guys, I just kind of wanted to go through and pick out different quotes that I found within the thematic analysis. This was one of my favorite parts, and so I just wanted to be able to share some of this with you. So here's some of the responses from the PD participants. They're just very special, referring to the students. It's made a difference in their life. So powerful statements there. I also included some quotes from the responses of the student population. Things that say it's always been the best part of my week, brings a smile to my face, a big highlight. So again, really, really cool stuff here. So in conclusion, due to the semester limitations that we faced, the study wasn't fully completed and does lack a full data set because we didn't get that week 8 and we didn't get all the participants. However, no significant self-reported changes of well-being and quality of life were found, and that does not support our hypothesis. However, trends can be seen in our data that suggest continuation of the study could support our hypothesis. Again, we saw those trends within the questions. And then further studies should be completed with a larger population. So then here's some of my resources. And now I'll take any questions you may have.
All right, does that look okay? All right, hi everybody. My name is Tessa Mendoza. I am a senior here at Iowa State, and this is my 4th year in the lab. And then I'm also working with Gus. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Gus. I am a junior in biology at Iowa State, and this is my first semester working in the lab.
So together we worked on a project called Photovoice, and so today we'll just be talking about the application of Photovoice technique in persons with Parkinson's disease. So Photovoice, which I'm sure not many of us are familiar with, it was a new technique for me this semester, but it's a community-based participatory research technique, and it combines photography, discussion, writing, narration, and self-reflection, all to address personal and community issues. So in the past, there have been a number of studies utilizing Photovoice in certain populations, including people with chronic health conditions or disabilities, and then people with other hard life challenging circumstances. And as we all are familiar with, Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disease that results in a range of physical symptoms, but also impacts quality of life and emotional well-being. And so specifically, this study is looking to apply Photovoice to a community with Parkinson's disease. And the goal of this is to increase connectedness and strengthen communication skills, while also improving self-advocacy and community engagement for those involved. So our hypothesis for this study was that measures of self-efficacy, proactivity, sense of community, depression, and independence will all improve in people with Parkinson's disease through the involvement of Photovoice. And so for this study, our participants, you really just have to have a formal diagnosis of Parkinson's disease and then a mini mental state examination score above 24. And so before I go any further, I just want to say that this project was supposed to be implemented starting in March, right after our spring break. And obviously with everything going on right now in the pandemic, we weren't able to actually apply Photovoice and go through the sessions. And so our presentation today will just be over the methods. I spoke with Gabby, who's the grad student kind of overseeing this project, and she said that they're hoping to begin or restart in the summer and fall, so which is really exciting. But today we'll just be talking about what we plan to do in our general methods and what we hope to find. And so if you turn your attention to the blue figure at the top in the middle column, this is just a flow chart that represents a typical Photovoice program. And so, yeah, every Photovoice program can kind of have its own flow or structure. And so Gus will go into a little bit more about what we decided to do for our specific study. But in general, there's 5 phases. And so in the first phase, everyone involved just receives an introduction to Photovoice. So what it is, what the possible benefits of Photovoice are, what will be expected of the people involved in Photovoice. And then we head into phase 2, which involves taking pictures. So every participant is asked to go out into their community and take photos of something that just speaks to them or something that they want to represent in photo, and you put these photos with a caption or a description. And then in phase 3, the group comes together again to discuss the photographs. And so that's an opportunity to just share with their peers and other people, in our case, other people with Parkinson's disease, and share the photographs and what they mean to them and why these pictures specifically were taken. And then phase 4, the pictures are processed and printed, and for our study specifically, they'll give an option for you to keep the picture if you're involved in the study. And then in phase 5, this is kind of the exciting part. Phase 5 is usually a community exhibition, and so typically after the discussion groups and the picture taking, there's a community session where other policymakers and important people in the community, or friends and family even, can come and gather and see just an exhibit of all the pictures taken. And so Jess will talk more about our opportunity, but that's typically something implemented at the end of Photovoice, and specifically that's helping to improve self-advocacy and community engagement. And one example of that, before I finish, it's not an example we were able to fit on our poster, but there was a gentleman in a previous study that had a traumatic brain injury, and so he was became wheelchair bound, and for his Photovoice whatever group he was in, where he completed Photovoice, he took a picture of a sidewalk near a school that he had used to walk every day, and there were cracks in the sidewalk, and so he just took a picture of the sidewalk, and then in his caption he described the challenges that were presented to him for trying to cross this part of the sidewalk while in a wheelchair. And then in the community session, this was able to be brought up to people in the community with the resources or an in to be able to get this part of the sidewalk fixed. And so just a really simple example of how a photo and a caption can really make a difference to a person and to a community. And so with that, Gus is going to take over and discuss more of our methods for our specific study.
That is a great example. Thanks for sharing, Tessa. So data collection for this study will go as follows. Participants will attend 4 distinct 90-minute sessions taking place once a week over a 4-week period. The initial completion of a mini mental state examination, Hone and Yar scale, and basic demographic information, including age, gender, race, and education, will be collected. So session 1 will be purely an assessment period. A sense of community scale, proactivity scale, depression scale, self-efficacy scale, social support scale, and independent of activities in daily living will be assessed. Then session 2 will be used to introduce Photovoice using a presentation and a tutorial on using the provided cameras offered through the program. Then after session 2, Photovoice will be implemented. So participants will go out and take 2 photos, one positive and one negative, based on the given prompt. And the prompt will be similar to that shown in figure 2. It might state, what do you value about your community and what do you want to see change? Then in session 3, there will be a Photovoice discussion. So participants will come back with their photos and they will caption them and they will share them. And they will probably have discussion questions similar to those listed in table 1 that will go like this. What do you see here? What is happening? And why does this concern us? And this really allows the individuals to delve deep into why they took these photos and share with others what they're feeling. Then in session 4, we will have another assessment and discussion period. So initially, participants will caption and share photos that they took after session 3. And then they will once again complete assessment scales as they completed earlier in session 1. Then after session 4, those who want to attend a community exhibit will have the opportunity to do so. And we will invite individuals from City Hall and around the community that can help these individuals make a change in the community for the better. So implementation of Photovoice. Here is an example of a photo voice composed by an individual with a traumatic brain injury. And the title reads as this: Maybe there will be a good view. So it says, it's a muddy, ruddy, hands and knees crawl up to the first rung of the ladder that begins to make some semblance of sense. And then you get to begin the real struggle. The climb does not and will not end. There is no final healed bone or mended tear of the skin to get over. Sometimes weekly and sometimes daily, there is a new step to attempt to get to your new self. You can't even ever hope to get back to your old self. Oh well, maybe there will be a good view and on this journey that I hadn't expected. And so this, I think, shows how Photovoice can take a simple photo and add self-expression in a helpful way and really provide someone with a voice that maybe wasn't being heard before. So below this example, we see a table of discussion questions that I mentioned earlier, and these are just used to help guide the discussions after Photovoice has been implemented during those sessions. And then we also see a table of benefits of Photovoice. So Photovoice allows individuals to share life experiences with an illness. It helps promote healing, tell stories, and develop new skills. It also allows people to connect through an image and contribute to awareness, while also promoting community advocacy. So results and conclusion. Future implementation of this study aims to improve the lives of persons with Parkinson's disease, promote community engagement, and further our understanding of the application of Photovoice in specialized populations. So as Tessa said, we obviously haven't been able to conduct this study due to the current pandemic. However, we hope to do so later this summer or early next fall. And we can't wait to see the results and possible benefits that it offers to persons with Parkinson's disease. This concludes our presentation. Are there any questions or comments?